And today we are reacting to banned episodes of SpongeBob Squarely Pants. Now I'm not gonna lie, my favorite episode of SpongeBob all time has to be the one where he was like, "I'm ugly, I'm proud. I'm ugly and I'm proud. I'm ugly and I'm proud. I'm ugly." My bad for yelling in your ear like that. You know what I'm saying? That's not player. I take accountability for that. I promise to do better going forward. But yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? Let me know what y'all favorite episode of SpongeBob was in the comment section below. I didn't even know they had banned episodes. But with that being said, man, let's go and get into this. Shout out Mug for the good content.
SpongeBob SquarePants is the most iconic and popular show ever. They have some of the best cartoon episodes known to man, but among a vast collection, there has to be a few that pollute it. Today I am talking about the episodes of SpongeBob that are frowned upon, specifically those episodes that made parents call and complain. I scrounged the web. Those episodes that made parents call and episodes of SpongeBob.
We just gonna ignore Squidward's BBL right here? Nigga, I don't remember this episode. I don't remember this nigga being built like goddamn Ice Spice now. Kim K, goddamn. Blotto, goddamn. I don't remember this shit.
That are frowned upon, specifically those episodes that made parents call and complain. I scrounged the web to find a bunch of those so-called controversial episodes, and I'm going to determine if they really are or not. Midlife Crustacean, probably the most infamous episode. Mr. Krabs is having a midlife crisis. He believes he is too old for everything. He perceives the world treating him differently due to his age. At the Krusty Krab, he overhears SpongeBob and Patrick talking about their party later that night. Mr. Krabs weasels his way into an invite and goes out on a night of fun. Mr. Krabs quickly finds out that SpongeBob and Patrick are losers and don't actually do anything youthful or fun. Once Mr. Krabs confronts them on this, he leaves. But Patrick suggests one last thing, a panty raid. Mr. Krabs becomes intrigued and agrees to partake. They climb into a house and steal women's underwear, and shockingly, it was his.
That's crazy. I remember this episode, but listening to that as an adult, nigga, that's crazy as fuck. I don't know about you, but when I was a young person, well, I guess I'm still am a young person at 23, but I mean, I'm getting up there, but I'm still young. But nigga, breaking in a house to steal panties? This type of shit never came into my head. What the fuck?
His mother's house, thus his mother's underwear. Shockingly, it was his mother's house, thus his mother's underwear. So, I don't think I need to explain why this was banned. It's a pretty adult theme and not the most appropriate, obviously. And the jokes throughout the episode are also more adult than usual. This episode was pretty out of character for Mr. Krabs, but especially SpongeBob and Patrick. They have never once showed interest in women, and here they are acting like they do this all the time. It's a fine episode, and it was one of the more iconic ones for me. I definitely don't think it needed to be banned, though. Rockabye by Valve. SpongeBob and Patrick find an abandoned baby clam and decide to raise it and be parents together. Patrick wants to take on the role of mother, but SpongeBob insists that he cannot because he doesn't wear a shirt. Patrick then accepts the role of father, thus making SpongeBob the mother. The episode then plays out in the typical old school idea that the father leaves for work and then leaves all the housework for the mother. Patrick continuously promises to help out with the clam, but never does, even going to parties well into the night. They fight and argue and Patrick decides to up and leave back to work. We find out his work is watching TV and eating ice cream at his house. While they argue some more, the baby clam is about to jump out of the window. Both of them fail to catch it, but that's because it can fly. It says farewell and leaves, and then SpongeBob and Patrick come to the realization that it was hard, but it's worth it. Patrick ends the episode suggesting they have another. The controversial aspect of this episode is that SpongeBob and Patrick portray a couple. First of all, no. They are playing on the stereotype of fathers that provide yet are absent and mothers that do all the thankless work. I mean, they quite literally say that at the beginning of the episode, assigning roles of mother and father. I feel like this theory would have more credibility if there was any allusion whatsoever to romance, but there is none. so by no means should this episode be controversial. The Great Snail Race. SpongeBob learns of a snail race that
this was a good one, right? This was a good episode right here, man.
Squidward has entered his purebred snail Snelly into. SpongeBob then wants to enter Gary into the race, but all Gary wants to do is watch TV. SpongeBob then takes on the role of a super demeaning and abusive coach. He trains Gary's little heart out, so much so that Gary is unable to even begin the race. Squidward's snail takes the lead. Meanwhile, Gary and Rocky, Patrick's Rock, hasn't moved from the starting position. After much verbal abuse from SpongeBob, Gary begins the race and goes into overdrive, and then begins to catch up on Snelly. After a minute though, Gary's eyeball pops, and then another pops, and SpongeBob begins to regret his demands. Gary's engine then bursts and skids off the track like crazy, damaging himself and his shell until he crashes into a wall. SpongeBob goes to comfort his half-dead snail. Snelly sees this and decides to go to Gary in a fit of love. Squidward understandably becomes disgruntled and Rocky somehow wins the race. The controversy with this episode is the obvious animal abuse. It is clearly apparent, but it's also the moral of the episode. Hey, don't abuse your pets or this will happen. I don't understand the controversy because they are by no means encouraging you to yell at your pets. This one doesn't really make sense to me. Squirrel jokes. Squirrel jokes are the only kind of jokes SpongeBob finds success in at the Krusty Krab comedy night. The squirrel jokes are the fish version of blonde jokes, with the main punchline being that they are dumb. Of course, his friend Sandy Cheeks, who is a squirrel, witnesses these jokes and feels offended. After her multiple attempts to get SpongeBob to stop, she invites him over to the tree dome where she feeds into the stereotype that she is stupid. SpongeBob quickly learns from his mistakes and goes back to comedy night, making fun of all species. So the claim is that the squirrel jokes are code for racist jokes. Honestly, it's a little understandable, but only a little. SpongeBob is making jokes and being derogatory to a species different to his, so when you put it like that, it does make more sense than most of these on this list. However, again with the moral thing, SpongeBob rights his wrongs and makes everyone happy. It teaches a valuable lesson, and just on that, it shouldn't be banned. Selling out. In this episode, a bunch of powerful executives waltz into the Krusty Krab and offer to buy it. Mr. Krabs originally declines, but then is offered a heaping load of money, and then quickly accepts. He retires and says a laundry list of things he wants to do. Within a few mere hours, he completes everything on his list. Meanwhile, at the Krusty Krab, actually, it's not the Krusty Krab anymore, it's Krabby O Mondays. It has turned into a sports bar type of thing, and SpongeBob and Squidward are essentially prisoners. The Krabby Patties are no longer made by SpongeBob. They are gray sludge that is painted with color and pumped out of a machine. Mr. Krabs comes back to work as a busboy and ends up exposing the place, destroying it and then rebuying it. I think this episode is great and the message is right in your face, and I love it. Of course, that's why it's controversial. People supposedly didn't like the messaging of big business being bad. I have to question, were these people's complaints or big business disguised as people complaining? A+ for this episode and should never, ever be banned. SpongeBob's Last Stand. Plankton is creating a superhighway that completely plows through jellyfish fields and forcefully relocates all of the jellyfish. This superhighway will also go right over the Krusty Krab and lead straight to the chum bucket. SpongeBob and Patrick go around protesting it, being portrayed as hippies at one point. The entire population of Bikini Bottom goes against SpongeBob and Patrick's movement. Mr. Krabs is desperate, and as a last-ditch effort, he wants to sell Plankton the Krabby Patty secret formula. When Mr. Krabs arrives, the dislocated jellyfish infiltrate the chum bucket and sting Plankton. The other jellyfish wreak havoc in Bikini Bottom and they cause destruction. SpongeBob speaks out to everyone on TV and all of the citizens of Bikini Bottom form an alliance to help destroy the superhighway, restoring jellyfish fields in Bikini Bottom to its natural state. So this is not only a fantastic episode, but doesn't seem problematic at all. This episode raises awareness for the environment and the preservation of animals. Last I checked, I don't think that was a bad thing. Ink Lemonade, the worst episode on this list, not because it's super controversial or anything, but because this episode just sucks overall. There's no quality, there's no jokes. I was so bored watching this one, and it still baffles me how hard SpongeBob fell from grace. This is also one of the most hated episodes in the entire run of the series. In this episode, Patrick is running a lemonade stand, but it's actually just water. There's a super nasty scene where Patrick rips off a band-aid and puts it on a rotting lemon gifted to him by Squidward. Patrick then uses that nasty lemon to make his lemonade. SpongeBob
What fuck? No.
comes by with a megaphone and scares Squidward into inking into the lemonade. Squidward runs and hides in embarrassment, and Patrick sells the ink under the moniker of Black Lemonade. It's an absolute hit. With their customers increasing, Patrick needs to get more ink, and the only way to do it is to scare Squidward. So he sets up this giant tent outside Squidward's house filled with stuff to scare him, and after 1,000 unfunny, over-exaggerated faces later, Patrick gets a ton of ink. Squidward breaks through the tent and learns they have been selling his ink. He blows away SpongeBob and Patrick and creates his own, but learns he's unable to create it unless he's scared. Once he is threatened, he inks all over the entire mile-long line. Everyone is then disgusted and throws up inside Squidward's house. It's not a great episode, by no means. The reason for it being controversial is because of how Patrick torments Squidward into inking. I mean, isn't tormenting Squidward like the longest running joke in SpongeBob? I don't really see how this is much different. I guess they usually do it by accident, and this time it's intentional, but this episode raises no red flags. Sailor Mouth, one of the more iconic episodes. Sailor Mouth is the episode where SpongeBob and Patrick swear. So SpongeBob takes out the trash, and on the dumpster some special swear words are written. He reads them out loud and then is censored by dolphin sound effects. He then teaches Patrick these words and goes through the Krusty Krab shouting them. Mr. Krabs reprimands them and teaches them about swear words. SpongeBob and Patrick leave and play a game of eels and escalators. SpongeBob then swears and Patrick decides to tattle on him. Patrick then also swears. The two race to the Krusty Krab and tattle on each other. Mr. Krabs,
Man, this lame ass shit. What the fuck? I remember my first time cussing too. My brother was trying to snitch on me too, but then eventually he got around. He started cussing himself too. But going to essentially your boss to go tell them that y'all was cussing on y'all fucking off time? Nigga, that's mad weird.
punishes them both to paint, and then Mr. Krabs stubs his toe and swears. Then the three of them are punished to paint Mrs. Krabs' house. This does have a more adult theme than other episodes, and it's right in your face. But the moral by the end is to not swear, so I think it redeems itself. No, it shouldn't be banned, but it is understandably a little controversial. The Splinter. I think we all remember this one from our childhoods, unfortunately. SpongeBob gets a splinter while at work, and he spends the entire episode trying to get it out and hide it from Mr. Krabs so he doesn't get sent home early. Squidward eventually lets Mr. Krabs know, and he pulls the splinter from his thumb. This episode is controversial because of how disgusting it is. It genuinely is so disgusting. From watching the splinter enter SpongeBob's thumb, to watching Patrick further hammer it into his thumb and then infecting it with garbage, and then at the end where Mr. Krabs pulls it out and drenches him in pus. Were they really this low on ideas? There's a few funny parts, but this episode was so disgusting, and we don't need to unnecessarily expose kids to this. I don't think gross out humor, if you can call it that, is funny by any means. This one should be banned, and I think that is kind of the consensus. Just one bite. Here is probably the most ridiculous one. The episode starts off with Squidward hating Krabby Patties, completely denouncing them. SpongeBob says the only people that don't like Krabby Patties are the ones who haven't had one, and Squidward reveals that he has never had one. SpongeBob tries his hardest to get Squidward to try one, and finally he gives in. He takes the tiniest nibble and falls in love, but puts up a front that he hates it. Squidward buries it in the sand and SpongeBob leaves. Squidward then digs it up and devours the sandy Krabby Patty. SpongeBob later apologizes for being pushy. Meanwhile, Squidward is trying his hardest to secretly get his hands on a Krabby Patty. He makes a fake order and even attempts to dig one out of the trash. Later in the night, Squidward dreams of Krabby Patties and eventually makes his way to the Krusty Krab to try and sneak inside the Krabby Patty vault. SpongeBob then also arrives because that just happens to be when he gets there. SpongeBob puts two and two together and learns Squidward loves Krabby Patties. Squidward accepts the truth and locks himself inside the vault and devours every patty in sight. He is warned not to eat them all because it will go straight to his thighs and then he will explode, both of which happen. It's a fantastic episode with some really iconic moments. Struggling to see the controversy? You are not alone. So really, this episode is subliminally talking about addiction, specifically food addiction. The only thing that gives merit to this supposed controversy is the fact that Squidward tries to hide it. The entire plot of the episode is based on how this is a completely out of character for Squidward, not addiction. There's very few things in this theory that can even make it valid, but I had to put this episode on the list because it's talked about a lot. Quarantined Crab. This is the second episode that was actually banned. This episode and Midlife Crustacean were the only two episodes ever to actually get banned. And today, in 2024, this episode has been unbanned, leaving Midlife Crustacean the only truly banned episode. This episode deals with quarantine and spreading sickness. It was scheduled to release in May of 2020.
But rightfully so, though, because that, again, sneaking into women's houses, let alone your own mother's house, to take her underwear? Nigga, that's insane.
Which just so happened to be when we were all quarantined and spreading sickness. It was all completely coincidental though. This episode was created many months or even years in advance. The episode painted a really bad picture for quarantine, which probably wouldn't have been the best for the time. In 2022, after all the COVID stuff had subsided, Nickelodeon finally released this episode in America. However, it had already been out for 2 years in Europe. The health inspector comes in the Krusty Krab, and using a certain device reveals someone has the clam flu. SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, Mrs. Puff, and Pearl are all
What if instead of calling they called it the clam? Hey,
locked inside the Krusty Krab, and they have to figure out which one is sick. Mr. Krabs brings up an old Navy story about how this same thing happened to him on a boat, and they lock the sick one in the freezer. They pick each other off one by one until everyone besides Mr. Krabs is in the freezer. They realize none of them are sick and form a coup to capture Mr. Krabs, who is really the sick one. Mr. Krabs acts feral and runs from them. They try to capture him, but they kind of fail. Later that night, the health inspector comes back to tell them the equipment was upside down and no one was sick. Upon his arrival, every character now has a certain illness, and Mr. Krabs has a combination of all of them. This then leads to a super quarantine and a pretty somber ending. Of every episode on this list, this one does make the most sense, as it was time sensitive, and then Nickelodeon did it justice by releasing it later. One Course Meal. This is one episode that seemingly flies over people's radars. In this episode, Mr. Krabs finds out Plankton has a whale phobia, and then completely abuses this information. He dresses up like Pearl and scares him constantly, to the point where Plankton is frightened to go outside. After multiple weeks, he gives up and decides there's no point with the constant mental torture, so he decides to lay in the road and wait to get run over. It comes across relatively lighthearted in the show, because Plankton makes multiple jokes about it, but it really is pretty dark. What's worse is that Mr. Krabs gets tons of enjoyment out of it and looks forward to it. SpongeBob devises a plan to cheer Plankton back up and to get back at Mr. Krabs, which he does by capturing Mr. Krabs and forcing a mime on him. SpongeBob then projects whales outside and Plankton is scared again. The episode has a loose plot. It feels like they had a decent idea for an episode but needed some filler. I mean, there's like a 1.5 minute long battle sequence at the start of the episode. It's definitely not the best thing SpongeBob has produced. But anywho, the controversial part is the constant mental torture. It's like Ink Lemonade, but so much worse. At least Patrick had a motive to scare Squidward. Mr. Krabs just does it to mentally torture Plankton. And the moral by the end is to get back at bullies by bullying harder. They failed on that front.
well, I mean, Mr. Krabs scaring Plankton. These niggas have been beefing for years though, so like this just seems like normal like op going at op behavior.
Remember kids, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. There were a few more I was going to put on this list, like A Pal for Gary. It is one of the worst episodes, and a lot of the story is about pet neglect. Another episode I considered talking about was SpongeBob, You're Fired. The episode paints a bad image for the unemployed, and shows SpongeBob acting completely opposite to himself and getting depressed. I didn't talk in depth about these ones simply because I wanted to talk about the other ones more, and I didn't want to make the video forever long, but
You know what I'm saying? Speaking of forever long, with that being said, man, y'all let me know y'all thoughts on this in the comment section below. Let me know what episode you think should have been banned. I already told y'all the panty shit, that shit is absurd. You know? But yeah, also go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button, man. I'd really appreciate it if you could do that for me. And until next time, peace.